Even the guys who invented this technology say, we don't know where it could go. It could go anywhere, so that's exciting. Freedom and integrity to me are related. Freedom is being able to say what you think and do what you say. And integrity is being able to say what you think and do what you say.
Gareth Cliff is a multi-award winning media personality and entrepreneur with over 25 years in the industry. In 2014, he disrupted his own radio career by pioneering podcasting in South Africa and growing it to what is now known as the Real Network. Today, we are here to chat to him about how he has built this fantastic business. Gareth, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
And for being here.
Sure.
First of all, congratulations, for building the Real Network.
Thank you.
And staying, in the game with your business for 10 years.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm reticent to take congratulations on these things because you never really know when you're done, and you never really know when you're successful. You have to keep working at it, and every day feels like another step in the right direction.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I want to take it a little bit, back so that we just get to know you a little bit. You've described your childhood as you grew up in an environment where you were allowed to explore and be curious. How did that, set you up for the entrepreneur that you've become? What was your home environment like? Did that contribute?
I think you're right about the fact that we were encouraged as children, my brother and sister and I, to be curious about things, to ask questions, to try to find things out. We weren't always given the answers directly, but you could go out and try to figure out what things were made of, why they were there, how they worked, that kind of thing. There was never a "that's none of your business" kind of thing. And I think we were encouraged to question all kinds of things. I've developed a bit of a problem because I have no respect for authority as a result of that, which has its downside and its upside. But I am perpetually interested in the world. There isn't a day where I've woken up and felt like, okay, no, today I don't want to do anything. I don't want to learn anything. I think that's important in anything, not just business.
Were you business-minded as a child?
No, God, no. And I've never read any of those boring business biographies or those things that take up 3 shelves because you've got a bunch of losers who think if they read about Richard Branson's story, they're going to have success. It's like, that's not how it works. His circumstances were perfect for him. And timing has got a lot to do with it, and luck has got a lot to do with it. And a lot of the business leaders that I've interviewed, you'll glean a couple of useful and interesting things. I hope I can deliver just one in this discussion. But much of it is kind of useless. It's pertinent only to their particular experience. That's my opinion. So I was never really interested in business. I was interested in the opportunities that you can explore and that you can play with when you have money. But the idea of doing business only started appealing to me later on.
So when you're saying you're interested in opportunities, what does that
Well, I think money creates options. So you, instead of having to stay in Johannesburg, you can go and explore what Durban, Cape Town, Bloemfontein, Putatichaba can do. And I think that's only possible when you have money and an adventurous spirit. It's like, options are, I can read this book because I can buy the book, or I'm going to have to make another plan. Those are the sort of things that money can do for you. And it's helpful, but it's not limiting to the degree that you can't do anything without it.
Okay, great. So you've built a business based on the internet. Right? You were born in an era where there was no internet. I was also born in an era where there was no internet.
You look much too young. I don't believe you for a second.
Yeah, and internet was only introduced in South Africa commercially in 1992. And I believe at the time you were probably in high school.
I was.
Right?
Yes, the first interaction I had with the internet was probably in 97, 98 at university.
So about 5-6 years or so before Facebook was introduced, you started a business.
Yeah, we did.
That was based on the internet, that was called Get a Life.
You have done your research.
And it was like a student platform, and you were on the way to being to beat Mark Zuckerberg, not to be Mark Zuckerberg, but to beat Mark Zuckerberg. And from what I understand is that it probably just didn't take off because the dot-com bubble burst, at the time. So what I'd like to know about that is that as much as the business, did not take off and it didn't work out, there's probably most likely very valuable things that you learned from that. And how did the lessons from that pave the way for later on when you started what was known as Cliff Central?
So I don't think the two are related, but I'm really pleased you brought that up because I often forget that, those were in the late 90s, early 2000s. It was the most exciting time because the internet was starting to show what it could do. Yes. Not in terms of business necessarily, but from my point of view, it was about communication and connecting people. Yes. And we did develop a social medium before there was social media.
Yeah.
And I don't think we entirely understood what we were doing because we were all students. I was doing a part-time job at 702 at the time, and that was a talk radio station. And it was just a fun thing we were doing on the side, a student portal where all the campuses could link up together. There were ways for people to set up their own profiles.
Yes.
I mean, it was kind of revolutionary at the time. We didn't think so.
Yeah.
We were just setting up some way for them to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
Essentially, it was also kind of a database collection thing at a very early stage too.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to use essentially a mailing list to be able to communicate to these people when it came to important news, events that we were doing, all sorts of things. So that taught me a lot. And I had very smart partners at that stage too. There was a guy called John Kuhn,
yes,
who died at 26. He had a heart issue,
yeah,
but very, very clever guy. He was the president of the WITS SRC. We had Nikki, Zander, Alan, and I. And we were just 5 guys playing with the idea of the internet.
Yeah.
And I think we did hit on something really cool. We were about to sell the idea to a big media company here in South Africa, and that's when the bubble happened.
Yes.
And it burst, and everybody was like, "Ooh, we're not touching anything on the internet."
Yeah. Okay. And what are some of just like the great lessons? Being at the time you were young and you were probably not very entrepreneurial,
or even
right?
sensible.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't think if I think about it now, I don't really regard any of it as being, lessons, and these were things that none of it was being taken seriously.
Yeah.
You must understand everything we were doing was ridiculous and stupid.
Yeah.
And we were having fun.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me to reconcile that with the idea that this could make money in the beginning.
Uh-huh.
Slowly we started to realize, oh, hang on, we can put advertising into this. There's a way to create a community, a market of really smart, connected people. So maybe that stuff, the seeds were sown, and later on we learned a way to develop.
And also you had no blueprint, like there was nothing, there was no script to follow, there was nothing like
no strategy.
No.
We were not serious business people sitting down going, right, now we're going to figure out how we're going to turn the internet into a moneymaker.
Yeah.
It was more just a fun thing to do to pass the time between what we were doing at work and at varsity.
And at varsity. Okay. So now you get into radio. You have a very successful career, in radio, and then you decide at some point that you're going to leave radio. And you left radio at the time where it was at the height of your career, right? From just my experience and with a whole bunch of people that I've spoken to, no one leaves something really good at the height, right? Unless you're being pushed by something that
They're a psychopath.
Yeah, well, you're a psychopath too, but also there's something that's bigger than yourself, right? That I would believe was pushing you. So what was that thing for you? What was that thing that was keeping you up at night? I would assume to a point where you went, this is a great gig, I'm making money, but I need to go and pursue that other thing.
It was a combination of factors. So that there was a pull and a push. The push was that radio is not a real career. You can't build on it or rely on it. You don't know whether you might say something tomorrow and get fired. I was working at the SABC, which is a tremendously unstable environment.
Yeah.
They never interfered, but they started to interfere. They said things like, for example, it was 2014, and it was election year. And they said to me, you can't interview Julius Malema, the leader of the newest political party. At that stage we didn't know, but it was going to become the 3rd biggest party in the country. you know, when you tell me not to do something, then all I want to do is that thing.
Yeah.
So that was partly, there was a push there. The pull part was for me to develop something new. We all already at that stage had started to accept that social media was on the rise and very powerful already. I had 1 million and something followers on Twitter, and I thought, well, the audience doesn't belong to the SABC or to 5FM. This audience isn't coming for them, they're coming for me.
Yeah.
So let me take them somewhere else that's more exciting. It was the opportunity to start a business, to run a business, to be independent, to earn your own money, to hire people, to give other people an opportunity. All of those things were also baked into the cake. So it was a combo of all of those factors that I think made me very comfortable about leaving. I'm also not afraid. I was fired from campus radio at 19.
Yeah.
So once you've been fired, you're not scared.
You're not scared anymore.
And I didn't lose anything. They weren't paying me anyway.
Yeah.
So it was like being fired. So you get the feeling of being fired, but none of the financial repercussions. I didn't have a bond. I didn't have children. I didn't have car payments or anything. So it was like, oh, they fired me. Oh, it's terrifying.
This is survivable.
Yeah, and I got over it.
Yeah.
You know? So it was a soft landing.
Yeah, and probably it's just the perfect time for one to get fired.
Yeah, if there is such a thing. I
Yeah.
mean, some people are perpetually frightened of being fired. Some people are perpetually afraid of upsetting other people. I just, for some reason, don't care as much about those things.
I also once got fired at age 19, funny enough.
Good
But
for you.
different story.
I don't want to know how, but
no, I'm
good
not
for
going to
you.
get into it. Yeah, I'm not going to get into it. So, I mean, change is challenging, even if you're the one that has, initiated the change.
Sure.
And also when you're starting something new. I mean, I want to...
By the way, that's where those sleepless nights you were talking about come in.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, once you've started something new
Yeah.
and you need it to work and
Yeah.
you're not sure how.
Yeah, and you're not sure how. I want to ask, what were some of those difficult times, if you're not afraid of being vulnerable enough? Like, the most difficult things, those moments where you felt like this might not work out.
I have to give credit to my business partner who started Cliff Central with me, Rena Brumberg, who's a juggernaut. She handled the finances, she handled the HR, she handled a lot of the complicated business aspects of this, and I was allowed to focus on bringing an audience, creating a show, attracting the talent, and putting the client relationships together. So it was, again, no man is an island, and I don't think I could have done any of that stuff without her. But it did keep me up at night. I was worried about cash flow. I was worried about paying salaries. I was worried about clients. I was worried about, are we going to suddenly spike and then disappear?
So now you are a CEO and you're running this business. You had gone from, being an employee at the time you were young, and now you've grown up. You've spoken about clients. You've spoken about the things that you were worried about. But also, the thing that makes you Gareth Cliff is the fact that you're outspoken, and it's the fact that you speak your mind. How do we balance CEO now and Gareth and being authentic and staying authentic to who you are?
So that has been an ongoing challenge, and the fact that you've identified it makes me, I'm first of all very impressed already with how much you know, but this shows some real insight on your part, because it is a difficult thing to be the brand and to try and sell and manage the brand. Now again, I had lots of help with Rena, but it gets to a point where you go, I'm not going to take the chance of losing this sponsor, this client, ruining this relationship because of something I say on air. And so I slowly, in the last 2 years or so, have wanted to very actively remove myself as the front man of this whole thing. I don't believe you can be the CEO and the talent at the same time. Ideally, in a year from now, I won't be in the media business anymore. Not the front guy. I'll be in the background. And I'll be very happy, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm tired of people.
And then you can continue to say all the things that you
No,
are able to say.
Because I've already said. I'm not. It's not like I'm feeling like I'm bottled up and I need to say stuff. I get to say things. I will continue to be the person who says things.
Yes.
But I'll just say it in smaller rooms to more qualified audiences, which I think is a lot more exciting than getting on a megaphone, because anyone can do that now.
Yes.
You know, the price of fame, the price of having influence in society has become very, very low. So now, if you have 1,000 followers on X, you suddenly think you're a broadcaster.
Yeah.
And that people are interested in your opinion. And the fact is they're not. So the idea of influencers has also become so cheap that I don't want to be in that game anymore. I would rather be in a small room with people talking about important, significant, intelligent, useful things, and turning it into business, turning it into a situation where we're exchanging value.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it makes sense that you would go that route, right? And I would say that it's probably been a long time coming, because from the time, I mean, I've listened to you over the past couple of years, but one of the things that always stuck out about you is that you like information, right? And some of the things that you'd speak about, I'd be like, oh, he knows that, which is, you know, look, here's the thing, when you are in the media, and especially on commercial radio, people can just sort of assume that you're not that smart.
No,
because of the content.
I don't disagree with you at all. In fact, the vast majority of people I've encountered in the media business are actually very stupid people. No, they are. They don't know a lot. So if they know enough to just slide by. So you say, for example, you could ask them about, I don't know, American politics. Yeah. You'd ask them about the Gaza-Israel conflict.
Yeah.
They'll have the talking points, the surface level stuff.
Yes.
But as soon as you ask anything a little bit more substantial, they fall apart completely.
Because they don't really know. Yeah, it's not a subject they're interested in.
They're in it for the shine, the fame, the kudos, the money, the following, who knows. But they're not in it because they care about the subject matter.
Yeah.
And I also think I'm just getting old and grumpy. So let's be realistic.
Yeah.
If I were 25 and I still desperately wanted people's attention, because I think at 25 everybody does.
Yes.
And if I were trying to make people laugh and trying to be the smartest guy in the room and all of that stuff, at 25 that's acceptable. Like now, I'd rather have a conversation with 10 people, 3 people, 1 person who can enlighten me, improve my understanding of something. We can share ideas, we can exchange value in the form of money, in terms of opportunities in the marketplace, in terms of products, whatever it might be. That is infinitely more valuable than having 10,000 likes or 100,000 listeners. And I'm not being disrespectful to the audience who stuck with me.
Yes.
I am enormously grateful for that. But that doesn't mean they own me. It doesn't mean they can keep asking me to do the things that I did before, you know, dance, monkey, dance. I'm done with that stuff. So to me, the exciting things are the things I haven't already done.
Yeah. So now the Real Network, right? So your business is described as full service media tech house, leveraging marketing tech and data-driven solutions. What prompted this transformation, right, from what the business was before? And can you just take us through your value proposition, just a bit, to just help us understand what the business does?
So what prompted this was primarily, I think, the time for change had come. Media is always evolving. The platforms are always evolving. The technology is always evolving. So there were opportunities on the horizon. I have a new business partner in the form of Gareth van Vieren. We started talking probably way into 2023. But we'd been talking some time before that too. And Rena had been part of those conversations as well. And it was time for us to build a platform that was able to plug in to all of the things that make media marketing advertising work.
Okay.
Connect the talent to that, be able to do it with the finest technology available, and essentially create products that are worth selling.
Okay.
So we can do content, but better than anyone else. We've got the experience of doing content in a way that is professional, sharp, focused, quick. We have enormously fast turnaround time. And we can deliver an absolute certainty of value in terms of the numbers that all the advertisers are looking for.
Okay.
So we know how that game works because we're attached to an ad agency here too that really know what they're doing and are fast approaching being one of the most influential voices in the market.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of numbers, I mean, I've heard in one of the interviews you were doing, and you were saying that when it comes to podcasting, right, numbers are not always just a reflection of, I guess, value and how you measure success, right?
Sure.
So, but now, how do you then measure success, especially for advertisers, if you are not using like traditional metrics like audience numbers and, yeah.
Well, I mean, audience numbers were completely made up when it came to TV and radio. They were made up. They would do research, but it would involve people actually filling out forms,
Yeah.
and handing them in a month later. I mean, this is like, 70s technology.
Yeah.
That's what they had. Now,
Yeah.
in the world of digital media, you have so many more ways to measure these things, and they do count. It matters. You've got YouTube, you've got Spotify, you've got Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you've got all the different podcast catchers. I don't really care where people listen or watch, as long as they listen and watch.
Yes.
So the content has to be powerful enough to attract an audience organically.
Yeah.
But then we all know what the media world is like now, because it's pay to play. That's how you get massive companies that put money on the table, and then they reach an audience of 20 million. Doesn't mean their content was so great that 20 million people were gagging to see it. It was probably horrible content, but they paid for those eyeballs and those ears. How much those people actually took in is a whole different story. We believe in building really useful and interesting messaging into the content in a way that is organic and meaningful. But a lot of the media environment isn't as romanticized as it once was. This person's very talented. That one knows how to play with an audience and let them have fun. This one can make you laugh. That's all gone away now. It's like, this is how much you have to pay to get that audience. And it's realistic. So I'm not the kind of person who's going to wail about that. I think that means that there's an opportunity to capitalize on it. And for brands, I think that's tremendous, because it gives them the ability to climb into people's heads. Podcasting especially is a good way to climb into people's heads, because you get to be in there for a long time. You get to interact and engage with them in a very obvious way, because these are people who've jumped into the boat. Fish that have jumped into the boat, as opposed to fish that you're fishing for. They've come to you. They've chosen you. It's the opposite of the old media model of you would broadcast and hope you attract an audience. Here, the audience says, this is the kind of content we want. Or a brand says to you, this is what we want to be involved in.
And then you
build it for them.
And you bring those people together.
Correct.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense, right? Because it's more scientific now. We would say that, right, than what it used to be, because even the methods that we are using now to measure are easy. You can repeat, which is what makes, science, where you can say, here's the method, we can repeat the method.
Right,
Okay, great. So now there's so much change happening all the time with technology, right? So radio was one technology, and you were like, this is not a lasting thing. Now you move, and then there's like podcasting. And now we're in this age of AI, and there's all these things that are, happening with AI. One of the things that I was like reading was, I don't know if you followed the case with Scarlett Johansson and OpenAI, where they, were using her voice, and now she's, suing the company. But I think they've just contracted new voices. I think, is it John Cena? Somebody?
Yeah, but these are people who've actually...
Who've given their voices,
correct.
right, to do some of the work. And how do you stay ahead of that as a company that is in the audio business to a certain extent? I know audio is not the only thing you do, but how do you stay ahead of that? Are you using that? Is it something you get excited about? Is it something that you're afraid of? How do you wrap your head around something like that?
All of this is tremendous. So at the core of it, we're still storytellers.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what the medium is that you tell those stories on. And someone once said they're called media because they're neither rare nor well done. But the storytelling is still absolutely crucial here.
Yeah.
And if you are a good storyteller, or you're a person who can convey information in a meaningful, funny, or clever, or interesting way, you will do well. People will listen, people pay attention. We're not an audio medium at all, because now we do everything visually as well as audio. I mean, lots of people prefer to listen, and I understand that, because you can do other things while you're listening to it. But we are employing some of the best technology in the business at the moment. We're using something called Unreal Engine, which they use in gaming. So in gaming, for example, you have complete 3D environments, because the character can move through these environments. You have actual real life events happening in the background. So leaves are falling from trees, water is flowing across a river.
Yes.
There's all this stuff happening in the environment behind someone or in front of them.
Yeah.
And you put them in that environment. We can do it in the studio here. What's incredible about that is that we can not only do stuff for existing shows that we're making, but we can take shows that have already been made and insert things in them afterwards using this technology. So if, for example, there's a scene where the President of the United States goes into a shop and he buys something, we can change the thing that's in his hand. And this is not about being deceitful. This is about creating an advertising opportunity, for example. We can make it look like people are watching something on their screens from footage that was recorded in the 90s, for example, and use it again and put it to use in a way that hasn't been thought of before. We can make pretty much any graphic elements that you need that will be 3D, that will be VR, virtual reality ready, and we can do all of that in our little studio here. We're already using green screen for live shows, which has never been used before. My show, live and in Unreal. And the guys are developing and designing new stuff all the time. So actually we're at such an advanced level of adopting new technology that there aren't people who can teach our people. So they have to learn.
Yeah.
So we actually get our guys in here and they sit here on weekends and they mess with stuff.
Yeah.
They create stuff. Some of it fails, some of it works, just so they can figure out what's possible.
Yeah.
Because even the guys who invented this technology say, we don't know where it could go.
Yeah.
It could go anywhere. So that's exciting. I mean, that means that, you could be 22 and working here for us and doing stuff that has never, ever been done before. That's truly revolutionary.
Yeah. I mean, you quite a pioneer, right? I'm going to lightly call you a pioneer. I can see the way you're looking at me like, don't do
that's
that.
fine. You can call me, I've been called a lot worse, so go ahead.
I've been called a lot worse. And you know exactly where I'm going with this, right? So because moving from radio and you pioneered podcasting in South Africa. In America, it was already there, right? We were watching The Breakfast Club and stuff. But in South Africa, you were the guy that, did the jump first, right? And everybody was looking at you and thought, you've lost your mind. And here you are now, with the Real Network, to a certain extent, still pioneering stuff. Because what you've just spoken about is how you've got people and you're figuring things out and you're learning things and doing stuff that people haven't done before. Do you own this thing of being a pioneer for yourself? Do you go, I'm a pioneer and I'm just gonna sit with it and own it and just know that?
Melody, I'm very lucky. I got an enormous amount of attention as a child.
Yeah.
I got lots of love. I'm not going around asking people for hugs or putting out tweets about how wonderful I am.
Yes.
I don't really care what other people think of me. That should be evident to anyone who's ever encountered me anywhere. I'm really not interested. If you like me, that's great. If you don't like me, that's great. My life continues. I don't look for personal kudos from anybody. And I don't think of myself in terms of words like pioneer. I'm just trying to do cool stuff. That's all. And we're doing very cool stuff. And I'm working with very cool people. And that's a privilege. I'm very lucky to be doing that. I'm learning new things. I don't think, all right, now I'm a pioneer, I'm done now. Let me rest on my laurels and let's see what, that would be purposeless.
Yeah.
And very frustrating. What do you do after that?
Yeah.
So I don't think that way. There are occasions, I'm sure we all have them, where you think, wow, today was a good day. I got a lot done today. And it was all new and interesting and fantastic.
Yeah.
And some days you go, oh, this is the worst job. Why the hell am I doing this?
Yeah.
So we all have that.
Yeah.
And I don't spend too much time in my own head.
Yeah.
It's very messy up there.
It's very messy
I spend more time. And honestly, I think that half the problem that kids have today and young people who are trying to find their place in the world is they're in their own heads all the time instead of getting out there and helping other people, doing things for other people, learning about other people, spending as little time as possible thinking of yourself.
Yes.
Because we've become a society where people are, especially Americans, are constantly navel gazing. And then they develop anxiety and depression. I've got this and I've got ADHD and they start listing their problems the moment you meet them and you think, God, don't leave me in a room with that person. Rather, have people who could talk about themselves in a very minimal way and everyone else in a maximal way. Because that's where you find that the world opens up and your problems become tiny. And you help other people who have real problems solve them. We live on a continent. And this is part of why I love what Henley Business School's been doing in Africa.
Yes.
And I know about this work. I've had really good conversations with John Foster Pedley over the years.
Yes.
And it's amazing to me that you guys are solving real problems. Water, power,
Yes.
Businesses, education, clothing, shoes, food. These are things that people think about and are worried about every day. The people who are sitting in their heads going, I've got such anxiety. I don't know if I can meet this girl because I've got anxiety. Those are not useful people, and I have no time for them. So I don't want to be like that. I want to solve problems like you guys do.
Oh, fantastic. And you are.
Hope so.
You know, you are. No,
Hope
you
so.
are. You're doing amazing. You know, for me, one of the reasons why I wanted to have, you know, a conversation with you.
You were very persistent. I tried my best to say I don't want to do this.
I don't take no for an answer.
Clearly.
Yeah, but part of the reason was, you know, and this is no shade to anyone else, right? Is, you know, we have a lot of business people, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, and we have a lot of them wanting to talk about, you know, what it is that they do. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm a millionaire, and I'm a this, and I'm a that, and I'm a that, right? And I was reading at the time when you were changing from Cliff Central to the Real Network. And the article started off, Cliff Central, that started in 2014. And I was like, my mind just went poof.
You're like, Jesus, how old is Gareth?
No, well, not even that. You know what? I was very much aware of it because I've got a 10-year-old daughter. So when it started, like, it's like the same age as my daughter. Right? So it's the same age as my daughter. And I thought, oh my goodness, it's been 10 years. And I've never had this guy brag one time about what a fantastic entrepreneur he is. Like, I've never heard you brag about that. Not one time.
Well, I'm terrified to, because how do people evaluate you? Some people would say, how big's your audience? Some people would say, how much money have you made?
Yeah.
Some people would say, how personally happy are you? Some people would say, how many people do you employ?
Yes.
Who are your most high-profile clients? I don't know how to evaluate any of those things. The one I can answer is personal happiness. I've got that.
Yes.
I'm very lucky. I'm a happy guy.
And that's how you're measuring your success.
Yeah, and I'm independent. So I value freedom and integrity, and I relate the two to each other. And I've had to come up with these definitions in my head because when you're in media, you're asked questions the whole time, and I'm very happy to say held to account for those answers you give. So freedom and integrity to me are related. Freedom is being able to say what you think and do what you say. And integrity is being able to say what you think and do what you say. So they marry, it makes sense. You don't have to remember 3 versions of every story. It's easy.
Yeah.
That's lovely. What a privilege to have that. Most people spend their entire lives chasing money, love, cars, gambling, sex, alcohol, whatever it is. If they get to a point where they realize that integrity and freedom are the most valuable prizes of all, and most people, by the time they get there, it's too late. That's a life that's been wasted. I am thrilled that I'm able at this stage to move forward with hopefully all the freedom that I've created already, and more that I wish to create for others.
Yes.
And then people will tell you when I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
Yeah.
So I hope that that's a representation of some kind of integrity. We don't always get it right, but mostly that's in my vision.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it. Thank you for your time.
That was so easy. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Pleasure.